What a weekend inside Kinnick Stadium, Saturday afternoon into evening. We'll certainly talk about Iowa's big victory against Penn State, but time to turn the page and talk about the Purdue Boilermakers. It's homecoming in Iowa City, and welcome to Black and Gold Breakdown. Rob Brooks, Matt Vandenberg, former great wide receiver for the Hawks. Gavin McGrath will be with us again next week. And Matt, obviously you've been around this game a long time, played in big games, and you just had that feeling sitting there on a Saturday night. Wow, what an incredible atmosphere. And just the way it turned out, and things didn't look too good in the first half. But as we are reminded, and I'm sure you've heard 1,000 times, it's a 60-minute football game, right? Not 30 or 45.
KF's mentioned it a time or two. You play the full 60. He'll say you play through the ups and downs. You play the full 60, and that's what we did on Saturday. Yeah,
there's no question about that. And you get down 14-3 after one quarter. After a really good play by Justin Jacobs to get the interception, the crowd was going nuts, and you got the feeling if Iowa could have punched that into the end zone, maybe a little bit different circumstance to start, but did get 3 points out of it. And then Sean Clifford in Penn State, you could tell those first two series were scripted. Seemed like the Iowa defense wasn't in the right position. There was some communication issues on the back end, but that's going to happen, especially early on in the ball game. But the Hawks adjusted.
Well, and you're playing it's 3 versus 4. And, like we just said, you're going to have the ups and downs. Justin's interception kind of reminded me of Ohio State,
right?
How Amani Hooker comes down, and obviously Amani was able to score. But what's interesting is that so Sean Clifford left, at the end of the game, he was still their leading rusher and their leading passer. So it kind of goes to show that he was their game plan. And so Jack Campbell, with the big hit, was able to knock him out.
Yeah, and you look at that, too. And obviously a lot of youth behind Clifford for Penn State. Not an easy situation. And the crowd reacted. The Iowa defense did as well. And I think you sat there at the half figuring, okay, is Penn State able to score in this second half with a brand new quarterback? You figured if Iowa gets a couple scores, can win this game, 26-23, 23-20 as it turned out. And that's exactly what happened. You didn't feel like you'd have to go out and score 35 or 40 in this game.
Well, and I don't think you think that often with Iowa's defense. I think they're almost up to 30 now of holding teams under 25 points or less. So to say that Iowa's going to win a shootout, I feel like that's just not the case at Iowa. But a lot of times, I never felt like we were out. Just a matter of finding gel and being able to kind of make your way down, not have as many stoppages after big plays that I think Penn State seemed to have.
Well, Kirk Ferentz talked about that on Tuesday. 2 legit injuries for sure.
Absolutely.
For Penn State. One just kind of went down, and another one was a little bit iffy as well. But for sure, one didn't seem like it occurred and bounced back really fast. And there was a clip that you can see on Twitter, I'm sure it's on Facebook, of LeVar Woods just kind of acting on the sidelines, going down just as the Penn State player. And that's only the second time that I remember anything like that potentially happening. You go back to the Michigan State game, I'd say about a decade ago, when you kind of got the feeling some of that was taking place. And Coach Ferentz actually talked about where there's 2 staff members that were at other schools where that was part of a game plan. They actually had code words for it. So to say it doesn't happen anywhere is probably naive. So it does, but certainly Penn State had for sure 2 legit injuries, both when Clifford being one, and the defensive lineman didn't even come back. But Iowa weathered the storm.
I was going to say, whatever they're doing on that sideline in that medical tent, I think that's where it really needs to be seen. But being able to, like you said, weather the storm, come back, and continue to have explosive plays. James Franklin said before the game that it would come down to turnovers and explosive plays. And earlier on this program, I had talked about how if you win both those things, you win the game every time. And we had 6 explosive plays to their 5, and we had 4 turnovers compared to their 1. So you win both those things, come away with a win.
Isn't it amazing, too, that Iowa leads the country in interceptions of 20, turnover margin plus 15, not plus 5 or 4, plus 15, 20 takeaways and 80 interceptions since the 2017 season. So it's not just the last couple of weeks or this season. This has been going on.
I think since, I want to say their 12-game win streak now, they're plus 24, plus 25 in that span. It's absolutely incredible. I'm not throwing the ball against our defense, but I also don't want to run it because our guys up front are stout. It's just a testament to Coach Parker and what he does on a consistent basis. It's not just, oh, it's a year here and it's a year there. It's every time, the Hawkeye defense is going to be good.
And another quarterback doesn't finish as an opponent, whether due to injury or lack of performance or the game just out of hand, and that's what the Hawkeyes have been doing. But it's Purdue this week, and certainly shouldn't be too tough to motivate the Hawkeyes for this. I certainly remember Purdue winning the game last year, and the Boilermakers have actually won 3 of the last 4 in this series. The Hawkeyes at number 2 in the country now try to stay there, and who knows, maybe move up the ladder. We'll take a look back, some of the highlights from last Saturday night. Stay with us, more Black and Gold Breakdown coming up. Black and Gold Breakdown on MC22 is brought to you by McGrath Family of Dealerships, 5 Seasons Tire, Tom Riley Law Firm, Collins Community Credit Union, Heartland Hearing Center, and by Extreme, powered by Mediacom.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible. Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power, and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared, and you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Thank you for virtual family dinners and long-distance birthday wishes. Thank you for sweet streaming melodies and spontaneous dance parties. Thank you for keeping classrooms together and learning alive. Thank you to our incredible network of employees who make all these beautiful connections possible.
Five plays that we picked out. Obviously, the good news about this year is we could take 10, 15 plays, but we'll stick with 5, brought to you by McGrath Family of Dealerships. And Iowa got off to a great start, got that defense out on the field, and talk about being in the right place at the right time. And the pressure, Matt, makes this whole play happen.
Seth Benson comes untouched with an opportunity to get the safety. Sean Clifford, I don't know if he's trying to throw it away or if he thinks he has a shot, but he knows he has to get rid of it. Seth Benson makes the play. Justin Jacobs, if he stays on his feet, he might score.
Wanted to secure that football, that's for sure. And then, of course, the big play to Charlie Jones just finds a way to get into the end zone on the pylon.
And this really started Iowa understanding that their offense can do something. I'll actually break down this play a little bit more in depth during X's and O's, but what a phenomenal effort by Charlie Jones there at the very end.
How about knowing exactly where you are on the field, too, to reach out and snatch that pylon with his right hand. And then Spencer Petras to Keegan Johnson, and as I talked to Spencer after the game, he didn't take any credit here. He said this was all Keegan.
It was a good job by Spencer, though, putting it on his outside shoulder, allowed Keegan to turn outside. That DB is thinking he's got an extra defender. Keegan shows his ability to stay in bounds, body awareness, and show a little power on the back end. I don't like how he put the ball inside where the bad guys are, but he's turning a 5-yard play into 42 when you're down by a touchdown.
You should have kept it in that left arm.
Absolutely.
And then the defense, once again, makes a play late in the ball game, and this really secures the victory. Matt Hankins doesn't have many picks, but was able to get that one. They don't throw to him too much.
I wouldn't throw to either of our DBs that are starting, or any of them.
Yep.
A great catch by Matt Hankins. If he bats it down, our offense gets the ball at the 4-yard line or whatever, but either way, he's a senior. He deserves it, especially at night in Kimmich.
And then, of course, this was just huge. Iowa down 4 points, and Nico Reganey, a little banana route, I call it, gets into the end zone. Again, that left pylon, and this was a first down play. And Brian Ferentz and Spencer Petras had a little extra time to think about this one, get this play called, and they saw the perfect defense.
Well, and they got what they wanted. And they've run this play 5 or 6 times, get everybody flowing, safety bites. Nico gives eyes back to Spencer to say, I'm ready for the football. Safety sees that, jumps it. Nico puts his foot in the ground, goes back. Rest is history.
Yeah, and to show the patience there, to wait for Nico to make his break and get into the wide open, then all you have to do is make sure you catch it, right?
You're almost too open
I know.
sometimes. So obviously happy, and that might go down as one of the top plays in Kinnick history.
Yeah, I mean, that place was just on fire all night, all day long, but certainly after that play as well. And to go back to the 2 freshmen, Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson, just really starting to make strides. And as you go back to your freshman year, played as a true freshman, did you feel a lot different halfway through the season than you did in camp and maybe the first couple weeks?
Oh, absolutely. That first
Is that
camp.
a huge difference?
Yeah, the first camp, I was scared. I mean,
Well, you know
every
what's
time.
going on, right?
No, you going out there. A lot of times, another receiver's telling you what to do. But then I got out there against Missouri State, and all I thought was, don't drop the ball. Like just as long as you catch the ball, you'll be okay. And then by the end of the year, you start getting into the flow of it. And I think I ended up with like 200 or 400 snaps, something like that. But the fact that Arlen Bruce and Keegan Johnson are getting that many now, what are they going to do in a couple years when they've had this underneath their belt and making plays like Arlen did against Maryland, and now Keegan Johnson again at home in a big game? It just shows to where they're going to go.
Could you kind of tell, too, when those two would get reps, get plays in the first couple games, but not necessarily targeted much, if at all, that, hey, this is just to kind of get your feet wet, that we're going to see you down the road?
A lot of it is to work on blocking and make sure that you're used to being out there. Not everybody's used to being in front of 70,000 people. So once you get past that and you realize you just got to do your job, everything becomes easier.
And what wideouts block in high school, huh?
We did not, I'll tell you that much.
But you will in college. We'll be back. More Black and Gold Breakdown. We'll talk Players of the Week. Stay with us.
While a lot is changing in our world, at Mediacom, our focus remains the same, making sure you have the fastest, most reliable connection possible. During this critical time, we know your needs are changing. You may be working or learning from home, relying on telemedicine, or finding new ways to keep everyone entertained. If you need more speed, call or go online, and Mediacom will double your speed immediately for as low as $10 more a month for 1 year. Right now, millions of people and billions of devices are connected to the internet. Homes, businesses, hospitals, schools. The security and reliability of these connections are more important than ever. That's why at Mediacom, we've built a network to protect them. A network that sees threats, fixes problems before they occur, and keeps you going with 99.99% network reliability. Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening, our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible.
Welcome back to Black and Gold Breakdown. We will talk about Iowa and Purdue a little bit later on, but let's talk Offensive Player of the Week. Nico Reganey kind of coming around. A little bit of a slow start in the ball game, but excellent to stay with it in the second half, and 73 yards worth of receptions. And of course, that big touchdown, and one that he and the team, family will remember for a long time.
I'm partial. He's number 89,
Yeah.
so I appreciate it a little.
We
I did
remember
not
that number.
I did not personally pick him, but he obviously rightfully so. The 3rd and 9 actually leading up to Charlie Jones' touchdown. Spencer's getting smacked. Nico comes across the middle, makes a great play to extend the drive and give us an opportunity.
And I think, too, that Spencer Petras is doing a good job spreading the football around the receivers, wide receivers, and also tight ends, and backs out of the backfield, obviously always trying to get Goodson in space.
And it shows that he's trusting all of his weapons. That's not something you usually see, especially with the young receivers we've got playing. But the fact that he trusts them enough to go to them when it's fourth quarter, you're down a touchdown, you need to play, or Nico coming across the middle, he knows he's getting hit. Like, my guy better catch this ball. So that kind of trust, that's developed over time, and he didn't have that last year.
Well, defensively, we could certainly talk about the entire secondary, and Matt Hankins, congratulations to him. Big Ten Player of the Week, a national honor as well. But boy, Jack Kerner has really impressed me on Saturday. He calls a lot of the defense out there. He's kind of the quarterback on the defensive side of the football. Tackled in space, which you have to do against good teams, especially Penn State. And they have really explosive wide receivers. And then had a big interception as well. And boy, you just got to really like his leadership out there too.
He seems to be the guy that always makes tackles in space. Like you said, we've faced a few running quarterbacks, but they don't get by Jack Kerner. He's always there to make a play, but actually the picture you're showing right now, that's a really tough catch. They tried to run the double move on him. He made a baseball turn to turn around and run it down, but DBs are known for not catching the football, but our guys are kind of proving that differently. Phenomenal job by Jack Kerner.
Well, Matt, that's a great point you make, too, because I was thinking about that. Think of the tough catches this secondary has made for interceptions and also making the easy ones. I mean, you look at Jacobs, one in the first quarter, and, well, there's guys who would drop that. But he secured it, and to have the amount of interceptions that Iowa has, the amount of takeaways, you can't drop a whole bunch of them. And they just haven't. They've secured that football. And, you know, the one Moss made and unfortunately got injured on, that was an unbelievable catch over the shoulder.
And he was even more extended than Jack Kerner was. But whether it's a gift or they got to work for it, I'm just not throwing the ball against Iowa.
No, and we'll see what Purdue will do because they love to throw the football. And good news, not great news, but good news on Riley Moss. Will not play this week against Purdue. Then Iowa has a bye week, and hopeful that he'll be ready for the Wisconsin game. Doesn't sound like any surgeries required, so good news, I think, on that front. And he was, you can always kind of tell facial expressions when he came back for the second half. Wasn't in a great mood, but was really trying to help out on the sideline, but could tell, hey, maybe this isn't a season ender, and thankfully that sounds like that's not going to be the case. Well, Matt talked about the play that he is going to break down in X's and O's, the Charlie Jones TD.
On this segment of X's and O's, you have a brand new face, one on the good side of the ball, which is the offensive side. No offense, Gavin. We're going to talk about Charlie Jones' touchdown. We're down 17-3 in the second quarter. We had a pass interference call, led down. We had a huge 3rd-and-9 conversion. It kind of set up this opportunity to bring us back into the game. So I like to focus on these two guys because that's receivers, right? We ran what's called, it's essentially a man beater on this side and a zone beater on that side. It's two different concepts, but we'll get into that. So a lot of times when you're in the red zone, you're going to face man-to-man coverage. You have got a lot less room to work with. Corners necessarily aren't worried about getting beat deep. One thing that Penn State does, though, however, is these guys aren't playing at levels, which means that if these two players were to cross, they might run into one another. Most of the time, what you should see is a guy playing up and a guy playing off, and they might combo it. You know, this guy takes whoever's out, this guy takes whoever's in. But instead, they're in a true man-to-man, and they don't play at levels, and we take advantage. Keegan Johnson runs a quick slant, and all he's trying to do is bring this guy in. Okay, he's got to follow him. He's got a man-to-man. Well, with Charlie Jones, he's just going out. That's all he's doing. But it puts this guy in a bind depending on Keegan Johnson's angle. So if he runs right at him, it forces this corner to either try and come underneath, where Charlie's probably going to beat him to the pylon, and Spencer's going to throw it over the top, or he's going to try and run over the top of both these guys, which is what happened, and Charlie's just going to beat him here and beat him to the end zone. So really, he can't be right in this situation, and that's a great job by our offense noticing that. Now, that's not the only play. Obviously, we have another 9 guys to worry about. But let's say they come out in zone. That's what this side of the play is for. Now, really, they were doing some funky things on defense. They tried to bring pressure here. This nose guard actually kind of takes 2 steps and then falls out. So there was nobody here in the middle. They blitz this guy, he blitzes out, or he comes off the edge, he goes straight up, and they try to bring a corner off the edge. Now, this guy, our Y here, is just going to set up over the ball. Our F is FH, it really changes depending upon the offense, is going to do just a wide stem hitch, and our A in this particular instance is going to go across. Now, what this does in a zone is really you're taking advantage of different holes in the zone. Usually he's going to be sitting here, so you might find a hole right here, or you might find a hole there, depending upon how these two guys play it. Spencer's going to read and make his throw based off that. But because he blitzes, he has to take the flat, he has to take 2, and his job is to take number 3, but he forgets and actually goes to number 2. So our tight end is standing wide open in the middle of the field anyway. But really, they couldn't be right. We had a man, we had a zone, and really brought us back into this football game.
All right, Matt, great job. And that's your first X's and O's, right?
Yeah,
Not your last, though.
Well, like I told the people, it's about the good side. It's about the offense.
Oh, of course, we would expect you to say nothing but that. We'll talk Iowa and Purdue, take a look at the Big Ten and the conference doing really, really well. And how many teams in the top 10? Well, we'll show you when we come back. Black and Gold Breakdown on MC22 is brought to you by McGrath Family of Dealerships, 5 Seasons Tire, Tom Riley Law Firm, Collins Community Credit Union, Heartland Hearing Center, and by Extreme, powered by Mediacom.
Every second, 127 new devices connect to the internet. You can feel it happening. Our digital world expanding with every breath. We're entering a whole new era of connectivity, and Mediacom will be ready to power it with one of the nation's first 10G platforms. We'll be bringing you more speed, more capacity, more security, and the power to do more than you ever dreamed possible. Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Thank you for virtual family dinners and long-distance birthday wishes. Thank you for sweet streaming melodies and spontaneous dance parties. Thank you for keeping classrooms together and learning alive. Thank you to our incredible network of employees who make all these beautiful connections possible.
Today, more than ever, you need fast, reliable internet. At Mediacom, we want you to know you can count on us. Our fiber-powered 100% gigabit technology network was built for the future. We have enormous capacity and power and 99.99% network reliability. So even though these are uncertain times, we're prepared. And you can be certain we'll keep your world connected.
Homecoming on Saturday, 2:30 kick for Iowa and Purdue, and the Boilermakers coming off a bye week, so they've been able to rest. And Matt, it's always interesting with Purdue. They can run the football, obviously geared more toward the pass, but it's always like who's going to quarterback week in and week out. Aiden O'Connell has been the guy, but we'll see what happens on Saturday.
I feel like Purdue is also one of those teams, you don't know what Purdue team is going to show up. Is it going to be the Purdue team that beat Ohio State a couple years ago, or is it going to be the Purdue that you win by 35? And to your point, I mean, they pulled their starter against Illinois, and then O'Connell comes in, throws an interception on his first 2 drives before he leads them down for a touchdown. And you just don't know, like you said. You just don't know.
And David Bell obviously is the guy. Everybody knows him if you've watched Iowa and Purdue the last couple of years. And Purdue's got that ability to hit big plays. And obviously the Iowa defense, that's number one, don't give up big plays, but it'll really be number one this week.
Well, and I don't remember exactly what year it was, but I think it was like Riley's true freshman year when they were able to go deep multiple times. I'm going to take a very educated guess that that's not going to be the case this time. They can sling it. They're going to throw it 50 times a game. But at the same time, with as many takeaways as we have, I wouldn't be surprised if we walk away with a few of those ourselves.
Yeah, well, of course. You're going to be a few interceptions this week. There is every single week. And going back to your time inside the building after a big victory like that, hard to turn the page. It seems like this team will be pretty focused come Saturday.
It is and it isn't. I mean, they harp the 24-hour rule, which means that, you get 24 hours from the time that game ended. You look at the tape, you realize what you could have done better, which the nice thing is you're sitting at 6-0 and you can still consistently get better. Taking away, not turning the ball over on our side and making sure that we don't allow big plays or the way that we rush to allow quarterbacks to escape, just different things like that, knowing that you can continue to go. I think this team is going to be focused. You're top 5 for a reason, top 2 for a reason. And if you want to be there, you better consistently be there.
Yeah, and I think that's the key thing. There's just so much at stake that you would think you wouldn't even look at the record of an opponent because one loss and you're done.
Absolutely.
As far as the top 4.
And with half the top 10 being, I'm sure we'll get to it, but half the top 10 being Big Ten teams, it shows that we're in a pretty good conference too. You can't turn your back on anybody.
Yeah, Iowa should be favored in every single game the rest of the year, but there's some stumbling blocks, and as former players have always reminded me that, hey, what a team looks like one week doesn't mean what they're going to look like in 3 weeks. And you mentioned Purdue. Which team are you going to get? And that's going to be the case all the way through the rest of the season, because if you're going to sit there at number 2 and be undefeated, you're going to get everybody's best shot, obviously. Look at Ohio State at number 6. Even though the Buckeyes lost to Oregon, everything still runs through Columbus, in my opinion, as far as the Big Ten title is concerned. Penn State drops to 7. Michigan snuck out a victory in Lincoln, still 6-0. And you've got Michigan State. Nobody really talking a whole lot about the Spartans at number 10. And that's pretty good when you look at the top 10 to see how many Big Ten teams. But how you start playing each other, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State, all will collide. So that's obviously going to change, but still really good teams.
Absolutely. It's interesting that we're the only team on the West that's there. But just like KF would always talk about, control what you can control. We can't control what happens on the other guys beating each other up, or what happens for Purdue or how they come out. It's how we respond to whatever they do, knowing that they might change some defensive fronts, knowing that they might change a few things to give us some wrinkles. But again, the way that we're going about it is businesslike. We're going over there for a business trip to come back, hopefully in the same position we're in now.
Well, the road to Indy begins here, right? Right in the complex.
Goes through those doors.
Let's take a quick look at games this week. Really not a huge slate for the Big Ten. A lot of teams are off. Of course, Iowa will have its bye week a week from Saturday. Nebraska at Minnesota, interesting. Nebraska, I think, has got a good team when you look at offense and defense, but just continue to make mistakes. We'll see what happens, Iowa and Purdue this weekend, and we'll break it down next week right here.